poem is inspired and dedicated to my great-granddad Jack. War. I could hear the explosion of bombs. I could die at any moment. I groaned as I heaved my comrades into the sack, knowing that it could be me very soon. All of my friends said I was brave, but inside I knew that I was scared too. I didn't want to go back, but at least I knew I wasn't going back to the trench with mites and another disease. My boat rocks and rolls and bang, there goes another bomb. I'm fighting for my country, and yet I know that soon I'll be lay on the bed of the sea, resting, hoping that one day I'll be free, lay on the bed of the sea.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember.
Good morning. As the Armed Forces Champion of Worcester City Council and a former soldier myself, I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to make this short address on the 75th celebration of VE Day. While it is only appropriate to commemorate the Allies' victory in Europe, we should not forget that the war in the Pacific theatre continued for many months more, and one can only marvel at the courage and determination of those soldiers operating in the region who continue to fight in the knowledge that peace had been signed in Europe. Nearly 400,000 British service personnel gave their lives in the defence of Britain and our allied nations, with another 375,000 service personnel sustaining serious injuries. It is further recognition to these brave men and women that on returning from war, they set about rebuilding Great Britain following the devastation of World War II. Captain, now Colonel Tom Moore, is a shining example of that generation, not only of their courage, but their generosity, humility and humour. Very few survivors of World War II remain, but today we honour them, their fallen comrades, all those who have since passed, and all the veterans of more recent conflicts who have served in our outstanding armed forces.
Hello, I am Councillor Aladita, the Mayor of Worcester City. I am currently recording this from home. Unfortunately, due to this coronavirus, I can't be present, and many of my colleagues can't also be present. We would have loved to be sharing that platform with you all, but unfortunately, due to this coronavirus, we had to cancel the event. So we are doing a recording message to show our appreciation of the ending of the 75-year anniversary of VE Day. And I would like to take this opportunity to share that with you, and some of men and women of all nationalities who gave their lives for us to enjoy this period. At least we can do is to remember them annually and be victorious of all the efforts of the people who annually make this possible. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who contribute supporting this annual Victory VE Day. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The London Victory celebrations of 1946 were the British Commonwealth Empire and Allied victory celebrations held in London after the defeat of Germany in Japan in World War II. These celebrations took place on the 8th of June 1946 and consist of a military parade through the City of London and fireworks display that evening. Most British allies took part in the parade, including Belgium, Brazil, China, Czechoslovakia, France, Greece, Luxembourg, the Netherlands and the United States of America. However, the parade arrangements caused a lasting controversy surrounding the lack of representation of Polish forces. The sad fact is that 74 years ago, the British government, under pressure from the Soviets and Stalin, did not invite the Polish armed forces who fought with the Allies to the victory parade in London. Considering the huge support of the Polish army at Monte Cassino, Polish Home Army Underground AK, the Polish Navy, the Polish Airborne at Arnhem, and the Polish Air Force in the Battle of Britain. This was perceived as disloyalty. In fact, General Sikorski's Polish Armed Forces was the only fighting ally of the Prime Minister Winston Churchill in 1940, as the USA was not yet involved in the war. The parade caused political controversy in the UK at that time, and continued to be criticized because of the lack of representation of Polish forces. During the war, more than 250,000 members of the Polish armed forces in the West had fought under British High Command. In addition, the Home Army AK in Poland, including a further 500,000 fighters loyal to the Allied command in London. The Polish forces were loyal to the Polish government in exile, and they were opposed to the Soviet Union since the time of the Nazi-Soviet Pact. They had hoped to return to a democratic non-communist Poland after the war. However, by 1946, the British government changed its diplomatic recognition from the pro-democracy Poles in exile to the new communist-dominated provisional government of national unity in Poland, where, according to Winston Churchill and others, totalitarian control was being established. On Friday, the 8th of May this year, it was planned on the 13 Polish veterans to take part in the VE 2020 parade. Most of them are over 90 years old now. The Royal British Legion had decided to address the wrongs and negligence of the past, but acknowledging the Poles' service and sacrifice as a part of the Allied war effort and paying tribute to the heroic war generation from all Allied nations. Unfortunately, this year's VE Day May 2020 celebration has been cancelled due to the coronavirus pandemic. But we must still remember the sacrifices of those that fought for liberty across Europe. As we face some of the most challenging times since the end of the Second World War, now more than ever, it's important for us to unite in recognition of the service to the nations of the Allied forces 75 years ago. As a proud Pole myself, I'm delighted that the Polish contribution to the fight for liberty is properly recognized and acknowledged this VE Day 75 years on. I would like to say thank you for the heritage that they passed on to me, for raising me in the country where I'm blessed to be free. During this current crisis, let us be inspired by the Second World War generation to learn from their resilience, courage and fortitude. We continue to remember their heroism. We must all promise not to forget. Thank you all very much.
My mother was a nurse in London during the Blitz. Her husband was in the 10th Battalion of the Worcester Regiment, but volunteered for airborne forces and jumped into Normandy on D-Day. He was severely wounded and died some days later, leaving a young wife who was expecting their first child. My father was also in the 10th Battalion of the Worcester Regiment and volunteered for special duties service in India and fought behind the Japanese lines in Burma as a Chindit in 1944. In May 1945, he, together with the 2nd and the 7th Battalions of the Worcester Regiment, were in India and Burma continuing the fight against the Japanese. He came home in 1946 and married his best friend's widow. It is therefore hardly surprising that as a family we grew up exceedingly mindful of VE Day, VJ Day and Armistice Sunday, and the enormous sacrifice that members of that generation made so that ours and future generations can enjoy the freedom and liberty that we do today. It is therefore a great honour to be asked to read Sir Winston Churchill's speech that was broadcast to the nation on VE Day, the 8th of May, 1945, which I do with great humility. This is the broadcast delivered by Winston Churchill at 3 p.m. on May the 8th, 1945, VE Day. Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m. at headquarters, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, and Grand Admiral Dönitz, the designated head of the German state, signed the Act of Unconditional Surrender of all German land, sea and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Force, and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command. General Bedell Smith, Chief of Staff of the Allied Expeditionary Force, and General François Servet signed the document on behalf of the Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, and General Suzloparov signed on behalf of the Russian High Command. Today this agreement will be ratified and confirmed at Berlin, where Air Chief Marshal Tedder, Deputy Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, and General de Tassigny will sign on behalf of General Eisenhower. Marshal Zhukov will sign on behalf of the Soviet High Command. The German representatives will be Field Marshal Keitel, Chief of the High Command, and the Commanders-in-Chief of the German Army, Navy and Air Forces. Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, but in the interest of saving lives, the ceasefire began yesterday to be sounded all along the front, and our dear Channel Islands are also to be freed today. The Germans are still in places resisting the Russian troops, but should they continue to do so after midnight, they will, of course, deprive themselves of the protection of the laws of war, and will be attacked from all quarters by the Allied troops. It is not surprising that on such long fronts, and in the existing disorder of the enemy, the orders of the German High Command should not in every case be obeyed immediately. This does not, in our opinion, with the best military advice at our disposal, constitute any reason for withholding from the nation the facts communicated to us by General Eisenhower of the unconditional surrender already signed at Reims, nor should it prevent us from celebrating today and tomorrow as Victory in Europe days. Today, perhaps, we shall think mostly of ourselves. Tomorrow, we shall pay a particular tribute to our Russian comrades, whose prowess in the field has been one of the great contributions to the general victory. The German war is therefore at an end. After years of intense preparation, Germany hurled herself on Poland at the beginning of September 1939, and, in pursuance of our guarantee to Poland, and in agreement with the French Republic, Great Britain, the British Empire, and the Commonwealth of Nations declared war upon this foul aggression. After gallant France had been struck down, we, from this island and from our united empire, maintained the struggle single-handed for a whole year until we were joined by the military might of Soviet Russia and later by the overwhelming power and resources of the United States of America. Finally, almost the whole world was combined against the evildoers, who are now prostrate before us. Our gratitude to our splendid allies goes forth from all our hearts in this island and throughout the British Empire. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing, but let us not forget for a moment the toil and efforts that lie ahead. Japan, with all her treachery and greed, remains unsubdued. The injury she has inflicted on Great Britain, the United States and other countries, and her detestable cruelties call for justice and retribution. We must now devote all our strength and resources to the completion of our task, both at home and abroad. Advance, Britannia! Long live the cause of freedom! God save the King!